Welcome to Shifting TV, the place to be to release old thought patterns and step into a new you with your host, Stephanie Dodd of The Shift That Matters. Join us this week as we meet supporter and gatherer of all women, Katie Chairavallotti. Katie is a business owner, homeschooling mama, a gratitude extraordinaire, Reiki practitioner, and reflexologist. Katie has learned to track language and really says what she means and means what she says. You're in for some goodness in this episode of The Shift That Matters.
Thank you. I'm humbled to be here. I appreciate that you're doing this work and we're getting the word out to people about raising our vibration and shifting the way we view things and tracking our language. It's all amazing stuff.
It really is. How did you step into this? What was your first... I walked into this world of energy, this world of awareness.
Wow.
When did that happen for you?
So I think it's not just this big, like, it happened on this day at this time. When you look back, when somebody asks you a question like that, you can see this path that you've been on. You can see these little steps along the way. This friend in college who introduced you to another way of thinking. A guy you dated who said, hey, look up at the sky, because you didn't really stargaze before that. Different things in my life that happened medically that when you lose your power, or if power is taken from you, you then have the opportunity to see that next time you can do it differently.
Finding the silver lining.
Absolutely,
absolutely.
And for me, this built with different things. I grew up in a very meat and potatoes, do what the doctor tells you kind of family, and it got to a point where that no longer worked for me. I grew up very obese. I was very overweight until I was about 20. I lost a lot of weight, and my life started to shift then. I started eating a little bit healthier, listening to my body, figuring out what didn't work. Fast forward many years, and my middle son has severe food allergies. So that brought me to a real awakening into what goes into your body, because these foods that he's eating, at the time I was eating, so I was breastfeeding, that should have been nourishing him were not. Gut healing, it just opened up this world. I mean, the internet is an amazing thing used in an enlightening, healthful way. There's so much information out there. And I was blessed to find other moms walking this path, and we had the opportunity to do all kinds of gut healing, and I began to learn more about complementary medicine and energy medicine. It's pretty amazing. It's been a ride, I'll tell you. It's been a ride.
And coming from a world where things started to shift for me food-wise because my son couldn't take it, I know it's not easy. I know taking that first step can be hard, and when you're in it, sometimes it really sucks. And then you come around and you can look back on the past.
Yes.
And you can see
hindsight's
the
an
path
amazing
that
thing.
you've come and more easily see the even longer path that's yet still ahead of you, and be more open and willing to take that journey.
When we kept food journals for a while, working to figure out what was even triggering him. When I have gone back since and flipped through, I mean, notebooks upon notebooks upon notebooks and crazy spreadsheets, because my husband was going to figure out things for me. And I look back at that, and so advice that I say to mamas on this path now, I very much say, you know, yes, definitely track. If food journaling works for you, if elimination works for you, if it's feeling good and right, follow that path. But let yourself off the hook. Like, take that hook out a little bit and be in it. Be in it with your child and be in it with yourself. And you know that I think a huge lesson for me was self-empathy. And it was through learning NVC and compassionate communication that had an instructor say to me, are you stopping, like the permission to be angry, and then are you stopping and acknowledging and being empathetic with where you are? And I was like, what? What? Where I count. My feelings count. And so when I encounter a parent now who's, sometimes people look to you like, oh, you've been down this road, help me. What's the magic fix? And it's like, there isn't one.
What's the one thing that I can do?
What's the one thing?
I keep hearing you talk about empathy. Some empathy for others. What are the 3 biggest benefits that you have received in your life once you have learned to have empathy?
What a question. Well, I think my family and those around me, those close to me, get emotional honesty. So your family, your kids, your friends, those close to you feel it and they know it, but if you're not identifying it, you're not really giving it a name or saying what it is, a lot of times we go into ourselves. So now another person close to you is feeling your frustration or your anger or your anxiety, and they have their own story, and now they're attacking themselves about what they should or shouldn't be doing or what they did or didn't do right. When really, if we just say, this happened today, it didn't go the way I wanted it to go, I had this intention, and it fell apart, and I'm feeling frustrated about. Then you empathize with yourself, they can empathize with you, and you're in a dance with each other now, as opposed to your story, their story, and the wall.
It almost sounds like, wow, we can actually have a conversation about it instead of listening to, well, you did that, and mentally thinking, shame, blame, I did that, how can I beat this, what's going on, and thinking about it all itself.
So having grown up in a huge dynamic around shame and blame and whose fault is it? And this is still something I work on. I've been parenting for 11 years now, and I still can get caught in that who did it, whose fault is it? And my kids will catch me in it because they know, right? We've done this dance. But having grown up in that, it's years of undoing, of not going into that. So a lot of the work I do is around the root of things. So I help folks get down, let's dig a little. Sometimes we're surrounded by positive affirmations and how to look on the right side of things. And this is wonderful. I believe in keeping our vibration high. I believe in health and wellness, and I think that affects our overall well-being. And yet, if we're truly going to feel that, we have to go down. You have to go deep. You have to dig. You need to, my belief, your mileage may vary, but you need to really delve into the stuff that stirs us up, the stuff that holds the key to the ongoing repeated patterns. And when we dig down to that and we can look at it and we can examine it and we can say, hey, this is what I didn't get, or this is what I wish I had, I think that's when we really find the gold. That's when we really find, when we can release ourselves from the things that bind us and keep us small.
I once heard that the problem is not with The Secret, the book, the movie. All of that's good and well, and it can work, but only if you're addressing the underlying core beliefs. What are your beliefs that keep you from feeling I am good enough? So you can say I'm good enough all day long, but until you erase the part, that self-talk that says, but, and once you address that, then you can start saying, I feel good enough, and things will start moving, flying, and it will happen.
It's that piece of, I can say these positive affirmations, I can plaster them all over my house, I can read them on Facebook, I can connect with my friends, I can have an accountability partner, I can, at the wazoo. But the bottom line is, if you still sit in that place of, but if they only knew my anger, if they only knew. So when we come into this place of knowing it ourselves and owning our authenticity, and when we can call out the places where we struggle in parenting, I am the first one to say, I was so excited to become a mom. The first year is really difficult for me. Sleep deprivation is really an ugly thing for me. It's really, so when I talk about this with new moms, like I've had people say, this is the best time of your life. I'm thinking, dear God, especially my generation, we were really taught to be well-rounded, be able to do a lot of things, and it's like, sort of a joke. Why not take the pieces of ourselves that we're really comfortable and really secure in and that we really love and fly with them, and then pull in the support for the pieces that are not so, that are a little sticky.
You are really good about finding support, showing women where to seek out support and how to do it. What can you say to that? Somebody who's maybe sitting there lonely, parenting, not having the resources.
So the first thing I would say is I'm not a joiner. I despise groups. I'm not big on anything more than a few people. You put me in a little league situation of stadiums and parents, I usually sit by myself. Those are not easy places for me. And yet I created a homeschool co-op. I co-create a monthly Red Tent Temple for women, in my own healing practice. I think when we really desire things like support and we call that into our being, we find what we're meant to find. And if that's just one person that can reteach us about trust. Because so many of us, I think women are learning a new way to come together. We're remembering the old way. We're remembering that we sit in circle. We're remembering that we are mighty together. Some women are going to work outside the home. Some are going to work in the home. Some are going to bring in a paycheck. Some are not. Some are going to co-sleep. Some are not. Some are going to breastfeed. Some are going to bottle feed. Blah, blah, blah. Are we women? Are we raising children? Can we support each other? Can we hear each other? And I think as we heal and as we do our work, it ripples out and we find other women. And I don't know if I answered your question.
I don't remember what my question was. How do you seek support?
How do you
don't
seek support?
have support, what I'm hearing you say is it doesn't have to come in 5 different shades or forms, like whatever that support means to you.
So the other piece of trusting and calling in this idea of support and this idea of sisterhood is knowing none of us is perfect and we may fail each other. And that's where empathy and forgiveness and love and compassion come in. Because what you see in that sister is what you have inside. She's taking that mirror, she's holding it in front of you, and she's letting you know. Because anything that's out there is within here. And we're just modeling it for one another.
And that goes, I think, from your kids to your spouse to your kids, or what's working on.
The lady in the store that pisses you off because she's yelling at her kid when you know you've yelled at your kid, But in that moment, you're triggered by it.
Oh, and that's the look that I used to think was shame and judgment, and now I just look and I tell myself it's compassion.
Yep.
That person is looking
that
at me
moment
with
is
compassion.
saying, I have been there. Yes. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy.
I cannot let you go without talking about Red Tent. Red Tent is a beautiful circle of sisterhood that you host, and I've been introduced to it through you. Please share it. I've mentioned it on Facebook, and women have said to me, "What is Red Tent?"
Okay, so the Red Tent Temple is the vision of a woman named Elisa Starkweather. She's up in Western Massachusetts, and her dream was to have a time once a month, near or on the new moon, when women come together to remember, to be nourished, to nourish, to drink tea, to tell stories, to be held, to laugh, to cry. Red Tent started out as one in Western Mass and has grown across the globe. There are women gathering across the globe.
And if somebody wants to find a Red Tent near them,
you can just Google Red Tent Temple and you will be drawn to Elisa Starkweather's. She is elisastarkweather.com. You will be drawn right to her website, and there's a link on it for Red Tent Temples, and then there's a link for locations. Definitely, my website has a link right to hers as well.
And remind us of your website.
It's a convoluted name. It's not easy, so I direct people just to Google Abundant Health and Healing. That's really the best way to. Facebook, you can find me as well. And the idea of Red Tent is it's spreading. So in a Red Tent Temple, any idea of what it's like to be with women. So I grew up in a very tomboyish way, not really surrounded by a lot of women, not really trusting a lot of women. The idea is, all the cattiness is left behind. You're taught skills on how to communicate and be in circle. There's a bit of direction around, when your button gets pushed, there's support for that. There's support for, it's not actually about that woman who pushed your button. It's really about something within you that's getting triggered. We're very conscious about how we speak to each other, the language we use, and how we handle conflict and difficulty. A lot of NVC is used, and I cannot speak highly enough about the support I have found through Red Tent, and everyone is different. What you see in the Red Tent of South Jersey might be different if you go over to Philly or you go to North Jersey, but it's a circle of sisterhood.
And it is a way that women supporting women. So if you're seeking support, if you're looking for something in your life, it is one of many options, but it's such a life-changing way to be able to come together and sit in a circle of women. Thank you so very much for being with us, for sharing, for being real.
Thank you.
Find Katie. If you want to work with Katie, she's available. You do sessions
I do.
in your office. Do you do phone? Do you do Skype? Do you do email? Can you work on a distance or do you work in person?
I'm open to distance. I tend to be, I like this.
Yeah.
I think we get value from really holding space with each other and looking into one another's eyes. And, you know, I think there's a lot of value in Skype, for sure. Because of the main part of the work I do tends to be hands-on healing work. That's my preference. That's where I know you're not walking out of my office until you're at least grounded in where you are. There may be sadness that came up, there may be some triggers, but you're grounded in where you have a path to move forward. Whereas when you click off that Skype, I don't know that you're actually getting the support that you need, right? So I do some work there, but it's not my go-to.
Okay, fantastic. Everybody works in their own way.
Yeah.
That's real, that's honest,
Yeah.
that's not trying to be everything to everybody. So thank you so very much.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.